Yay! She had to say hello first thing this time. We took a little bit of a detour on our way to making a Regency knit dress, and I made myself a very comfortable and useful 1940s bed jacket. And I think we are finally going to get to making the lace for the Regency knit dress. I want to make a full mock-up of the dress first in fabric to make sure that it will fit me once I make it in knitting. You might notice that I'm already in my Regency underthings. That's because I'm a little bit ahead of you right now. So why don't we get you caught up to where I am, and then we can make tons and tons and tons of machine knit lace. Okay, I got my parents' help to put this on. Love it so much. Now the main things that we need to discuss is the fit of this bodice, right? So I put in a drawstring here to draw everything a little bit closer together, and it's actually what is done in the V&A example, but I don't think the gathering is quite this strong. I don't want to put darts into my knit fabric. If you look at the V&A, and we can look at my sketch of the V&A one, there is a seam across like about half the bust, and I think I can move the darts into that seam. Before I do that though, I think I'm going to make another version of this top where I have removed this excess from the top here. I want this to be more about the knitting than the sewing, so why don't we do a fast forward transition to when I have the front piece of this pattern figured out for my blue petticoat. And the adjustments are done for the petticoat layer. I'm still going to put a drawstring into this to pull this tighter in the final petticoat. Now it's time for me to make the adjustments to the front bodice piece. This is the dart adjustment that I made here. Now these darts are going to be turned into kind of a cross seam. Let me jump right ahead to show you what the mock-up looks like for the knit lace layer. This one was a little bit more complicated, but I think we ended up making it work. Look at that. Can you see that seam line there? And it runs right up into my arm. Last bit of this mock-up we have to finish are adding these sleeves. Let's skip forward to when I've got some sleeves on my mock-up. And we've got one sleeve on. Now this, when it's finished, will be gathered along the bottom. Here comes the next question. When I made my lovely bed jacket, I knit every piece to the exact shape that I needed. Looking at the V&A piece, I don't think each piece would have been shaped in itself. I think that they would have just knit an entire long panel of fabric and cut the pieces apart. I'm going to follow that same methodology. Basically, I'm doing a whole bunch of steeking, which is kind of terrifying. Good morning. So we are going to get ready to start making some of the lace on my knitting machine. I've totaled it all up. I'm going to be making 5 panels of lace in the main lace and 1 panel of lace in the accent lace. Before I just kind of hammer away at making all these big lace panels though, I kind of want to sit down and show you how this Brother knitting machine makes the lace. Last time when I was knitting the lace for the bed jacket, you might have noticed that I was actually working with 2 carriages on my machine. The carriages ride along the machine bed, and the carriages are what feed the yarn to the needles to make each knit stitch. Well, the idea is that this carriage on the right hand side that has this yarn feeding into it is the only thing that feeds the yarn to the needles. So when I'm knitting with this one on the right, that is what is forming these stitches. When I'm using the lace carriage on the left, that is moving stitches left and right in order to make those kind of knit two togethers that you would see in a lace. This punch card will actually tell my lace carriage what to do. So it reads these holes to know what needles to pick and select. So this is going to be row number 1 for this next set of 2 rows of lace. So we're taking my lace carriage from left to right. Now it has read my punch cards and it has selected these needles. It's done nothing to the stitches. It's just by selected, I mean pulled forward these needles into the working position. So for a better view, you can see here, these needles are pushed forward according to the lace pattern. On our next pass, it's going to take all the stitches that were on the needles that were selected or pulled forward, and it's going to move them 1 needle to the left. This right here was the selected needle that we were watching, and the stitch is now gone off that needle. This needle has no stitch anymore, and instead that stitch has been moved one to the left. You might have noticed that on that pass, and it's not the only thing that happened, but some new needles came forward and they were selected. And these new needles that came forward on the next pass, the stitches that are on these needles are going to move one to the right. Let's watch that happen. At the end of the 4 moves with the lace carriage, we are in the position to actually form stitches. Right now the stitches has just been moved left and right. We've never actually formed any new stitches. So now this is with the right hand carriage. We're going to move it once. Now our knitting carriage is blocking our lace carriage, so we got to move it back to the right. And we've created another 2 rows of lace, but with 6 movements of our carriage. So let's show you that all together in quick succession. And that's how 2 rows of lace are formed on the Brother knitting machine. As I've been explaining how the lace on this machine works, I keep on referring back to these punch cards. They're very similar to what is used in jacquard looms to make pattern weaves, and guess what? It is the basis of modern computers. It's amazing to me how related weaving, knitting, and computers are. And speaking of that relationship with the fiber arts and computers, technology, math, science, if you're interested in diving deeper into that, then I'd like to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, Brilliant, which is an incredible platform and app that offers interactive learning in math, science, and computer science. Brilliant is a place where you learn by doing. It's an app on your phone that can replace scrolling. You get these bite-sized lessons in a bunch of different topics. Like I said, you could do math, data analysis, programming. If you might know, I'm a software engineer myself, but I'm a little out of touch with the most modern and up-to-date programming things. I've been enjoying Brilliant's programming courses. They are fantastic ways to build these foundations in these different subjects using real-world applications and examples. For example, Brilliant's Thinking in Code and Creative Coding courses help you get familiar with Python and start building programs on day 1 with a built-in drag and drop editor. You'll learn essential coding elements from loops and variables to nesting and conditionals. And trust me, if you don't know what that means yet, Brilliant will definitely help you learn, and if you know those things already, there are more advanced topics that you can also go into. I find reading a knitting pattern very much like reading a computer program. They two are very closely related, so if you've ever been interested in learning more about the coding side of things, I really recommend some of these courses by Brilliant. It's designed to be the most effective way to learn, using a first principles approach to build understanding from the ground up. It's been shown that their hands-on problem-solving real-world applications approach is 6 times more effective than just watching video lectures. And all of the content is crafted by an award-winning team. And it's really easy to build new knowledge in just minutes a day with fun, interactive lessons you can do whenever you have the time. If this sounds like something that you would want to dive deeper into, feel free to go to brilliant.org/engineeringknits to try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. You'll also get 20% off of an annual premium subscription. I'll also leave the link down in the description below, and you can get started with that today. And thank you again so much to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video. It makes it possible for me to make content and videos like this, especially using knitting machines. And speaking of which, let's get back to it. Okay, so now that we have gone over exactly how the lace is formed on this Brother machine, I think it's time for us to actually start making the lace panels. But wait, I know I keep on saying, but wait, one more thing before we do that. I want to make what's called a cast-on rag. I'm going to be making quite a few panels that are nearly the entire width of my knitting machine, which is 200 needles. Casting on is the hardest part I have found so far for me. And there are many methods to cast on a knitting machine, but I find all of them quite finicky. There are like cast-on bars that you can use, and I own cast-on bars, but they're all slightly bent out of shape in some ways. And with yarn that is a little bit more robust, a little bit thicker, a little bit stronger, that doesn't pose a problem. I've used it fine. But with the lace alpaca that I'm using, I have found every single time that I've tried to use it, I have ripped it and the cast on doesn't work. So I've switched to what's called a E-wrap cast on method, but boy, is it tedious. And even with this cast on method, I still manage to only successfully cast on maybe once out of every 3 or 4 tries. And so I want to use something called a cast on rag. I'm following a tutorial by the Answer Lady Knits. What a cast on rag does is it allows you to start knitting as if you had already cast onto your machine. So you don't actually really have to cast on. Let's try making the cast on rag. right, my cast on rag is complete. You can kind of see that there are these long loops that hang over the needles. And this is really easy to put on the needles rather than doing an E-wrap cast on. I've been debating what piece to knit on my machine first. I kind of wanted to start with the widest piece so that every piece after that feels a little bit easier. But the widest piece is the front piece. And I kind of want to do that not as my first one because I think that's going to be the most obvious bit of knitting. So I think I'm going to start with one of the back panels. On the sewn piece, I have 2 panels that I cut out of the fabric and I sew it together. Because my knitting machine isn't wide enough, I've had to break it up into 4 pieces. So let's get started. I've already got my cast on rag hung and let's start knitting. No! Look at this. Oh my gosh, how did this happen? Oh man. Okay, I have 2 options now with this kind of error. Either I fix it as best as I can, or I start over. I think I ripped it, so there must have been some extra tension somewhere on the machine. That's usually what causes that. I'm a little sad because everything else is going so well up to this point. I think I spent about an hour on this piece already. Let's see what it looks like when I hang it back on. I don't even know where these go. I would just hang them randomly so it doesn't unravel too much. This just feels like, that feels like too much to try and fix, to be honest. I'm not confident enough in being able to do that. So I'm going to take this down and we're going to do this. AKA, we're going to start over. Am I a little upset about that? Yeah, I am. I was hoping it would go a little smoother, but maybe I just have to work myself into the rhythm again. It's been about a week since I knit the bed jacket, so maybe I just need to refresh myself. And this was the false start, but let's start over. One more time, here we go. Okay, I am literally 15 rows from being halfway done with this piece. So I've gotten quite far. Can you see that? Got quite a bit knit. And look what happened, it jumped off. And I know last time I gave up on trying to fix it and I started over, but I am like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours deep on this particular one, so I really don't want to start it over. I'm going to see if I can rescue it. I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't think I can follow the pattern of what was here. I think I'm just going to try to have to get these stitches in the best condition that I can with what I've got at the moment, and hope that it looks halfway decent by the time I'm done. All right, it's not perfect, but I hope that it'll be good enough that when I start knitting again, it'll look half decent. I am now officially at 250 rows, so we're just past halfway. I should have 490 rows on each one of these panels, and I came to a thought that I'm getting more and more nervous as I do this. because I worry every single mistake from here on out is that much more terrifying. So I'm wondering if I should put in a lifeline, because we put in lifelines when we hand knit in case there's mistakes, then you can ravel back and it's safe at that point. It won't get any worse from that point forward. I don't know if anyone else has done this before. I'm sure people have thought about it, but I haven't seen it in any of the other knitting machine videos. But I don't know. It's at least a fail safe to get me back to this point in case anything else goes wrong in the future. Let me knock on wood. I don't know if my side table is real wood. Oh, these skis are real wood. Here we go. Oh, geez. Okay, well, they're about to fall over, so I don't know if that's very lucky. Yeah, let's put in a lifeline. I feel much better now that the lifeline is placed. Honestly, I have no idea what the technique would be to use the lifeline to put a piece back onto the machine, but at least I know that it won't unravel past the halfway point. And I was just starting my first few rows, and look what happened. Now, I don't know if this would have fallen off if I hadn't been manipulating the needles to put in the lifeline. All I know is whatever did happen didn't unravel at all because I had my lifeline in place, and I couldn't be happier about it. So let me put these back on the needles and put the stitches where they're supposed to be, and we can keep on knitting. And I think from here on out, I will definitely be putting more lifelines in place. I just feel so much better. I can't tell you. Seeing that come down and then just not go anywhere, it's like magic. The lifeline is magical. I'm about 150 rows from finishing, but Nutella just jumped on my lap and her eyes are open now because I'm talking, but she's sleepy and she's about to go to sleep. And I'm not about to wake her up, so I don't know if I'll be able to finish anything more tonight. But number one priority is letting this girl sleep. So instead of sitting on my lap by the knitting machine, I was a little too warm. Nutella has now claimed her usual spot in the curtains. She loves being underneath the curtains. I call it her fancy dress. Isn't she cute? She's asleep. I think the lovely sounds of the knitting machine puts her to sleep. We're on row 356 and we have to get to 490. I just put another lifeline in at every 50 rows. I'm doing lifelines right now and that's working quite well for me. So I'm just gonna keep on chugging along. Oh, thank goodness. Has gone dark. It's 9:30 at night, so this one panel has taken me all day. I have 3 more panels this size to make, 1 panel to make that's even bigger, and then 2 more after that. So hand making this dress with a knitting machine is way faster than hand knitting it, and I think we agreed upon the term that using something like a knitting machine to make something, it's still handmade. It's just not hand knit. It's machine knit, but still handmade. This one panel is a day, and it's not even blocked yet. There's some things that I have to fix. There's some faults in the early bits of it that I have to reinforce. I have to block it. I have to take out all of the intermediate stitches like my lifelines that I put in. Yesterday I spent about 8 hours making the first large panel. I had thought that I had plenty of practice after doing my bed jacket, but it had been a few days, like almost a week since I had last done the pattern, and it took me a while to work into it, so it did end up taking me a full 8 hours. I then stayed up past midnight last night and I made another panel the same size. That one only took me 4 hours, so I have the time that it took me to make it. I'm at a bit of a crossroads, right? So I have to make 2 more of approximately this size, but I'm out of yarn. Well, not quite. I don't have enough yarn to make the rest of the entire dress. I placed an order last night, or I guess really early this morning, past midnight this morning, and I did an express shipment, so it'll be here in a few days. What is the best next thing that I work on until the yarn gets here? I can continue making the big panels out of the main lace for the back and then the skirt front, because I'm in the groove now. I feel like I'm confident I can make the skirt front and I think it'll have minimal faults. At the same time, I also want to gauge swatch the accent lace. I've also just spent 12 hours over the last 24 hours knitting humongous panels of the same exact lace. And the accent lace, I only have to make one panel of that lace, and it's not as big as the rest of these panels. And I'm going to see if I can swatch the accent lace, and I can show you what the accent lace looks like. Whoops-a-daisy, I zoned out and this is what happened. Yeah, I don't know this lace pattern as well and I zoned out for a second and then it dropped. Why is it important that this lace pattern is different? Let me show you something real quick. Here's the new punch card. You probably saw me putting this into the machine. And there are all of these marks on the left-hand side and they tell you what to do with which carriage. So these pink ones on the left are the movements with the lace carriage. So my next movement was supposed to be from the left to the right with the lace carriage, and then it'll move one tick down and I'll go from right to left, and then I get to this black mark, and the black one is when I move the knitting carriage. So this one on the right here, so it always goes, it's an around because it goes around from right to left and then left to right, and then you start again with the lace carriage. So you see that they're not evenly spaced, so I do 2 movements with the lace carriage and then 4 movements and then 4, 2 and 4, 2 and 4. With the main lace, it's always 4 movements with the lace carriage, so I must have mixed them up. So this is kind of the problem of context switching, right? My brain is used to the other pattern, and I have to be a little bit more alert on this one. So let me rehang it and redo this gauge swatch. I made a few more mistakes on my second attempt, but it's off the machine and it's been blocked. I took the measurements on this, so now I know how much I need to cast on in order to make this piece that I'm gonna make for the accent lace. I only need to make one panel. I'm gonna have to cut 2 sleeves, 2 shoulder straps, and like the little accent piece up there out of it. So I'll cut all the pieces out of it, but I'm only making one panel to cover all of the needs for that. I guess I'll see you back at the machine when it's time to knit my accent lace panel. Well, I guess it's time to see how useful those lifelines are. Look what just happened. Oh my goodness. I'm almost 100 rows in. It makes you wonder how much it's worth it for me to try to rehang on the lifeline or if I should just restart. So I'm gonna first see if I can rehang it on the lifeline. I also had a bit of an oops at the bottom where I pulled off the cast on rag before I put a lifeline through that. Yeah, so this piece is a little raggedy. Okay, let me see if I can fix this. I just started trying to rehang the piece that fell off, and I realized that the lifeline does make it a lot easier in case anything happens. However, I didn't take a note of where in the pattern I was with that lifeline. So even if I managed to rehang 190 stitches onto my machine, I don't know where to start. And if I choose the wrong part of the pattern to start at, you know, because I was saying like one of them it's 4, another one's 2, there's going to be a really obvious mark through the middle of this piece. It does make you realize like the lifeline is a good thing, but I think I got a little too reliant on that with the last one because I didn't know where in the pattern I was. All these things to think of. I guess at least it gave me the false confidence to get the piece done last night. I will cast on now for the sleeves, and I'll do that panel, and then I will block the pieces that I have because that's what I can do at the moment. We are done. Look at that delightful bounce and how sheer and airy it is, and it's before even blocking it. I'm on my last ball of yarn that I have, and I have this much left, so at this point I think we can block the bits that we have. While I am less than halfway done with knitting all the lace that I need for this Regency dress, I do need over 50 square feet of lace in order to make this. I think I'm going to leave this video here for today while I'm waiting for the rest of my yarn to show up. If you want to see how this dress turns out, feel free to subscribe because that's exactly what the next video will be, hopefully finishing this handmade knit Regency dress. While it's definitely been a challenge getting all of this knit, I am enjoying the process very much so far, and I am so excited to see what the next steps will look like. So thank you so much again for joining me today, and I hope I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye! So at the very end here, I thought it might be fun to do a little bit of a different format where I answer some of the questions that I see in the comments from my previous video. I read all of your comments and I appreciate them so much, especially the last few videos. You all have been wishing me so well. I know I haven't been feeling well and I let you all know that, which is why things have been a little slow for me. I am doing much better, but it is such a light in those harder days when I see those comments, and I know you all are kind of rooting for me. So thank you so much. I also had a lot of comments that said they had a lot of fun with the machine carriage transitions, and I'm so glad because that was really fun to make, and obviously in this video I continued with that trend. So the first question that I saw in the comments is from Craftsy Penguin. I've noticed that you maybe hurt your hand while figuring out the machine issues. Take it easy. Yeah, that was thankfully not the knitting machine, but I did manage to hurt my hand when I was gardening. I've been doing a lot of gardening this summer, and I hope that at some point I can share what I've been growing with you all, because some of it is fiber and crafting related. The ground here, however, is very, very compacted heavy clay, and I was using a pickaxe to try to break ground, and I wasn't wearing protection of enough gloves. So that was my fault. I figured out better PPE to wear, but that was a kind of a painful lesson to learn. The next set of questions is kind of around some patterns. So from Jen Stumpf or Jen Stumpf, do you have a link to the pattern yarn / video on the absolutely gorgeous cable / bobble knit sweater I'm wearing? And I'm so glad you like it. I love it too, but unfortunately it's a vintage sweater. If you look for 1960s mohair sweaters or cardigans, you might find a similar pattern, but this is one of a collection of vintage sweaters that are kind of in the same vein that I'm hoping to create a pattern for in the future. So if you want that one or a close one, maybe keep your eye out. The other one that was kind of in that vein is from Isabel Lee 617. Did you make the green shirt you're wearing in the intro? I would love the pattern. Unfortunately, no, I didn't. That's another vintage one, but it's been one of my most requested sweaters to make a pattern. So that might be the next one that I'm turning into a knitting pattern. So maybe keep your eyes out. I can't promise how soon I might be able to make make it, but hopefully at some point. Another question we have is from Moonbasket. Also, did I spy a Chunks hair clip? I love their hair clips so much. They have such vibrant colors and amazing designs. Yes, it is. The founder of that company, Tiffany, is actually a family friend. So I'm able to get some of those clips for myself through her. Tiffany and her mom are family friends of ours. So it's really fun that someone recognized it and can highly recommend it. Obviously, I'm not sponsored. It's a friend and I love her things and I love the things she makes, and the clips are, like you said, really fun and vibrant. So that's great. I'm glad you spotted it. How fun is that? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions that were asked, but I did see a set of questions that asked what kind of strawberry kuchen or strawberry tart I made. Team AE Blue 816 said, is that strawberry kuchen? And Mrs. Brit 1 said, did you just make the Tudor strawberry tart Max Miller shared a few weeks ago? And yes, that's 100% what I made. I watched Tasting History with Max Miller. That strawberry tart looked fantastic, and we had just gotten in some fresh strawberries. So I thought that that would be the perfect dessert to bake. I love baking and I love all kinds of sweets. So that was just the perfect fit. And I think I did link the recipe for that, but if you also Google Max Miller Tudor strawberry tart, the recipe will show up. I can recommend it. I think it was very yummy. Anyway, I hope that you like this little new format where I can actually respond to some of your questions. Again, I do read all your comments, but I have a kind of maybe a little bit weird anxiety thing with actually typing responses to messages. So maybe this is a way that I can show you all that I do read them, and I hope I can interact with you a little bit like this. So feel free to leave your questions in the comments of this video, and maybe I'll answer that next time. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!